You don't belong here." Those 4 words destroyed Beatrice Vance's 20-year career in exactly 10 seconds. She just didn't know it yet. Beatrice, a senior flight attendant with a superiority complex, thought she was protecting the exclusivity of first class by blocking a young black girl wearing a hoodie from boarding. She thought she was doing her job. She didn't realize that the girl's casual hoodie cost more than Beatrice's car, and more importantly, she didn't realize that the name on the girl's passport, Sterling, was the same name painted on the tail of the airplane. This is the story of how arrogance met its match, and the brutal, satisfying karma that followed. You won't believe how this ends. The air inside JFK International Airport's Terminal 4 was thick with the specific kind of tension that only holiday travel can manufacture. It was a humid July afternoon, and the humidity seemed to have bypassed the industrial air conditioning, settling like a heavy blanket over the shoulders of tired travelers. Maya Sterling adjusted the strap of her vintage leather weekender bag, a weathered piece that looked like a thrift store find but was actually a custom Hermes commission, and glanced at the departure board. Flight SA 8822 to London Heathrow. On time. She pulled her hood up. It wasn't that she was trying to hide. She just wanted to disappear. At 22, Maya had spent her entire life in the spotlight of her father's empire, Sterling Airways, the fastest-growing luxury carrier in the transatlantic market. She was tired of the galas, tired of the board meetings she was forced to audit, and tired of being Marcus Sterling's daughter. Today, she just wanted to be Maya. She was flying to London to surprise her father for his birthday at the company's European HQ. But she hadn't told him she was coming. She wanted to experience the airline exactly as a paying customer would, without the red carpet that usually rolled out the second she stepped onto the tarmac. She looked down at her attire, oversized grey sweatpants, distinctively worn-in sneakers, and a black hoodie that swallowed her slender frame. To the untrained eye, she looked like a college student flying standby. To a trained eye, the sneakers were limited edition Balenciagas, and the watch peeking out from her sleeve was a Patek Philippe. But Beatrice Vance did not have a trained eye. She only had a prejudiced one. Beatrice stood behind the podium at gate B32, her posture rigid, her uniform pressed to military precision. She was the lead flight attendant, a purser with 20 years of experience and a reputation that terrified junior staff. Beatrice didn't just serve passengers, she managed them. She viewed first class not as a service, but as a private club where she was the bouncer. "Excuse me," a man in a rumpled suit asked, approaching the podium. "Is there any chance of an upgrade? I have gold status." Beatrice looked him up and down, her lip curling slightly. "The cabin is full, sir. And even if it weren't, upgrades are processed automatically. Please wait for your zone." She dismissed him with a flick of her hand. Her colleague, a younger flight attendant named Sarah, looked uncomfortable. "Beatrice, we actually have 2 empty seats in first," Sarah whispered. "Mr. Henderson missed his connection." "Quiet, Sarah," Beatrice snapped, not bothering to lower her voice. "We keep those open for premium clientele or operational needs. I'm not filling my cabin with upgraders who drink all the champagne and don't know how to use the cutlery." Maya was standing 10 feet away, listening. She felt a prickle of irritation. This was exactly the kind of culture her father was trying to stamp out. Marcus Sterling built his company on the motto, "Every passenger is a guest." Beatrice Vance evidently hadn't read the memo. Maya took a deep breath. She had a ticket. A full-fare, first-class ticket, booked under her middle name, Elena, to avoid flagging the VIP system. She approached the priority lane. Beatrice was busy reorganizing her stack of manifests, aggressively highlighting names in pink. She didn't look up until Maya cleared her throat. "Passport and boarding pass," Beatrice said, her voice flat, her eyes still on the paper. Maya handed them over. Beatrice took the passport, glanced at the photo, then at Maya, then back at the photo. Her eyes narrowed. She saw a young black woman in baggy clothes. She saw messy hair. She saw economy written all over her bias. "You're in the wrong line," Beatrice said, sliding the documents back across the counter without scanning them. "Economy boarding starts in 20 minutes at the general lanes. This is for first and business class only." Maya didn't move. She smiled, though it didn't reach her eyes. "I know. I'm in first." Beatrice let out a sharp, incredulous laugh. It was a sound like glass breaking. "Check your ticket again, sweetie. Zone 1 is for paid first-class passengers. Zone 5 is for you. Step aside. You're blocking the lane." The drama had begun. Maya felt the heat rise in her cheeks. It wasn't embarrassment. It was the slow-burning fury of injustice. She had dealt with people like Beatrice her whole life. Shop assistants who followed her around luxury stores, security guards who asked to check her bag but ignored the white woman next to her. But this was her airline. That made it personal. "I don't need to check my ticket," Maya said, her voice calm but firm. She pushed the boarding pass back toward Beatrice. "Scan it. Seat 1A." Beatrice didn't scan it. Instead, she picked it up as if it were contaminated waste. She looked at the seat assignment. 1A, the most coveted seat on the plane. The seat usually reserved for diplomats, celebrities, or the ultra-wealthy. 1A, Beatrice repeated, her tone dripping with skepticism. She looked at Maya's hoodie, then at the heavy gold chain around her neck. "Look, I don't know how you got this printed. Maybe a glitch in the kiosk or you found it on the floor. But there is no way you are sitting in 1A. That seat costs $12,000. "I am aware of the price," Maya said. "Are you going to let me board, or do I need to speak to the gate agent?" "I am the gate authority right now," Beatrice lied, puffing out her chest. The actual gate agent had stepped away to the jet bridge to check the cleaning crew. "And I'm telling you that I have the right to deny boarding to anyone who displays suspicious behavior or fails to adhere to the dress code." "Suspicious behavior?" Maya stepped closer, her hands resting on the counter. "Checking into a flight I paid for is suspicious? And since when does Sterling Airways have a dress code for paying passengers? I could wear a garbage bag if I wanted to." "Not in my cabin, you couldn't," Beatrice hissed. She leaned over the podium, her voice dropping to a menacing whisper. "Listen to me, little girl. I know what this is. You used a stolen credit card, or you're using someone else's miles. We see it all the time. Scammers trying to live the high life for a few hours. I'm not going to let you turn my first-class cabin into a hip-hop video set. Now, step aside before I call security." The line behind Maya was growing. A tall man in a bespoke navy suit tapped his watch impatiently. "What's the hold-up? I have a meeting in London." Beatrice flashed a dazzling, fake smile at the man. "Apologies, Mr. Sterling." She paused, glancing at the manifest, realizing that wasn't his name. "Apologies, sir. We just have a situation with a passenger who is confused about her seating assignment." Maya froze. Beatrice had almost said it. The name was everywhere. "I'm not confused," Maya said, loud enough for the people behind her to hear. "My name is Maya Sterling. I have a ticket for seat 1A. You are refusing to scan it because you don't think I look like I can afford it." Beatrice's face turned a shade of crimson. "Lower your voice. You are causing a disturbance. That is grounds for removal from the terminal." "Scan the ticket," Maya challenged. Beatrice snatched the boarding pass and aggressively shoved it under the scanner, expecting the crimson light of a rejection. Beep! A bright green light flashed. The screen read, "Passenger cleared. Seat 1A. Status, VIP." Maya raised an eyebrow. "Green light. That means go, right?" Beatrice stared at the screen, her mouth slightly ajar. The system had accepted it. But Beatrice Vance was not a woman who accepted defeat, especially not publicly. She couldn't back down now. If she let this girl walk onto the plane after making a scene, her authority would be shattered. She had to double down. She cancelled the scan manually. "System error," Beatrice declared, her voice shaking slightly with adrenaline. "The machine is glitching. Like I said, stolen card or system hack. I'm not boarding you until this is verified by the ground manager." "Then call the manager," Maya said, crossing her arms. "He's busy," Beatrice snapped. She looked at the line of impatient, wealthy passengers. She had to get them on board. She pointed a manicured finger at Maya. "Stand over there, by the wall. Wait until I board the actual first-class passengers. If there's time before the doors close, and if you behave, maybe I'll find you a seat in the back where you belong." "I paid for first," Maya said, her voice hardening. "And I'm revoking it," Beatrice said, enjoying the power trip. "Involuntary downgrade due to overbooking and behavioral issues. You want to get to London? You take seat 42B by the toilets, or you stay in New York. Your choice." Sarah, the junior attendant, looked horrified. "Beatrice, you can't just—" "I said quiet, Sarah," Beatrice barked. She turned to the man in the navy suit. "Please, sir, come forward. Welcome aboard." Maya stood motionless as the man brushed past her. He gave her a sympathetic, pitying look but didn't say a word. Passenger after passenger filed past. Some ignored her. Some stared. One woman clutched her purse tighter as she passed Maya. Maya moved to the wall, as instructed. She pulled out her phone. She didn't call the customer service line. She didn't call the police. She opened her contacts and scrolled to a number saved simply as Dad, Private. She typed a text. "Happy birthday, Dad. I'm at JFK. Your lead flight attendant at Gate B32 just accused me of credit card theft and downgraded me to row 42 because I'm wearing a hoodie. Don't call me. Just watch the flight manifest for SA 882. I'm going to let this play out." She hit send. Then she looked up at Beatrice, who was beaming at a celebrity boarding the plane. "Enjoy your power trip, Beatrice," Maya whispered to herself. "It's going to be your last." The boarding area was almost empty. The last of the Zone 4 passengers, families with strollers, backpackers, and confused tourists, had disappeared down the jet bridge. Maya stood by the wall, her phone buzzing silently in her pocket. She didn't check it. She knew her father, Marcus Sterling, was likely in a boardroom in London, and seeing a text from his daughter about being racially profiled on his own flagship route would trigger a nuclear response. But Maya needed him to wait. She needed Beatrice to dig the hole so deep that she could never climb out. "All right, you," Beatrice called out, not looking up from her computer screen. "You can board now. I did you a favor." Maya approached the podium. "A favor?" "I moved some things around," Beatrice said, finally handing Maya a new boarding pass. It was printed on thin, flimsy thermal paper, not the heavy card stock used for first class. The seat assignment read 42E, a middle seat in the very last row. Seat 1A is occupied by a gentleman who actually appreciates the value of the experience. You'll be in the rear. And Beatrice pointed a manicured finger at Maya's vintage leather weekender bag. "That bag is too big. It needs to be gate-checked." "This bag fits in the overhead," Maya stated calmly. "I've flown on this aircraft model, the Boeing 787-10 Dreamliner, a dozen times. The bins in economy are pivot bins. This bag fits. Beatrice's eyes narrowed. I don't care what you think you know. The flight is full. The bins are full. You give me the bag, or you don't get on the plane. It was a blatant lie. The flight wasn't full. Maya had checked the load factor on her phone app before arriving at the airport. Beatrice just wanted to strip her of her dignity, piece by piece. She wanted to separate Maya from her possessions, make her feel small, and force her to sit in the worst seat on the plane. Maya looked at the bag. It contained her laptop, her jewelry, and a prototype design for the airline's new cabin interiors that she was bringing to show her father. I'll check it, Maya said, her voice icy. She unzipped the bag, pulled out her laptop and the small folder with the designs, and handed the leather bag to Beatrice. Be careful with it. It's vintage. Beatrice scoffed, grabbing the handle roughly and tossing it onto the pile of strollers and wheelchairs to be taken down to the cargo hold. It looks like it came from a dumpster. Now get moving, you're holding up departure. Maya walked down the jet bridge. The cool air of the transition tunnel hit her face, smelling of jet fuel and recycled air. She stepped onto the plane. The lighting in the cabin was set to a soothing amber and violet, a signature of Sterling Airways meant to reduce jet lag. To the left was the sanctuary of first class. To the right was the long, narrow aisle leading to economy. Maya paused. She looked left. In seat 1A, her seat, sat the man in the navy suit, Mr. Pemberton. He was already settled in, sipping a glass of Dom Perignon, his feet resting on the ottoman. Beatrice was right behind Maya, literally herding her. Keep moving, Beatrice whispered near Maya's ear. Don't even look in there. That world isn't for you. Maya turned right. The walk to row 42 felt like a mile. She passed the business class pods, where businessmen were adjusting their noise-cancelling headphones. She passed the premium economy section. Finally, she reached the main economy cabin. It was chaotic. People were shoving suitcases into bins, arguing over armrests, and complaining about the heat. Maya navigated through the sea of bodies until she reached the very back. Row 42. It was right next to the lavatories. The smell of strong chemical disinfectant was already wafting through the air. Seat 42E was a middle seat, sandwiched between a large man who was already asleep, his elbow encroaching halfway into Maya's space, and a nervous teenager clutching a bag of snacks. Maya sat down. The seat was stiff. The legroom was non-existent. She placed her laptop on her lap and closed her eyes. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard Sterling Airways flight SA-882 with service to London Heathrow. The pilot's voice boomed over the intercom. This is Captain James Miller speaking. We're looking at a smooth ride across the Atlantic tonight. Flight time of 6 hours and 40 minutes. Our cabin crew, led by our purser Beatrice, is here to ensure your safety and comfort. Captain Miller. Maya smiled faintly. She had known James Miller since she was 10 years old. He used to let her sit in the cockpit simulators at the training center. He was one of the company's best pilots. If he knew she was back here, sandwiched next to the toilets, while a stranger drank her champagne, he would have turned the plane around. Beatrice's voice cut through the cabin next, shrill and commanding. Cabin crew, arm doors and cross-check. Maya watched as Sarah, the junior flight attendant who had tried to help earlier, walked down the aisle checking seat belts. When Sarah reached row 42, she paused. She looked at Maya, her eyes filled with apology. I'm so sorry, Sarah whispered, pretending to check the overhead bin latch above Maya. She just gets like this sometimes. If there was an open seat in premium, I'd move you, but she's watching the manifest like a hawk. It's okay, Sarah, Maya said softly. You're doing a good job. Just don't let her bully you too. Sarah looked surprised that Maya knew her name, but before she could ask, the chime sounded for takeoff. Sarah hurried to her jump seat. The engines roared to life. The plane shuddered and began its roll. As the G-force pushed Maya back into the cramped seat, she looked out the tiny window past the sleeping man's head. The lights of New York City fell away, replaced by the dark abyss of the Atlantic Ocean. She was trapped in a metal tube at 35,000 feet with a woman who hated her. The flight had officially begun. 2 hours into the flight, the cabin lights had been dimmed to a soft blue. The dinner service in economy had just concluded, a frantic affair of foil-wrapped trays and plastic cups. Maya hadn't eaten. She had pre-ordered a specific vegetarian meal with her first-class ticket, a dish created by the celebrity chef her father had just hired. But when the cart came to row 42, the flight attendant, a young man named Liam, looked at his tablet and frowned. "I don't have a meal listed for you, miss," Liam had said, "and we're out of the pasta. We only have the chicken left." "I'm vegetarian," Maya said. "Sorry," Liam shrugged, clearly exhausted. "We usually carry extras, but the count was tight today." So Maya sat hungry, drinking a cup of lukewarm water. Beatrice, meanwhile, had been absent from economy. As the purser, she was dutifully attending to the first-class cabin, likely pouring refills of vintage wine and fluffing pillows. But Maya knew Beatrice's type. She wouldn't be able to stay away. She would need to come back and gloat. She would need to verify that her problem passenger was miserable. Sure enough, around 10 p.m., the curtain separating premium economy from economy swished open. Beatrice walked through. She didn't look like a server. She looked like a warden patrolling a cell block. She walked slowly down the aisle, her eyes scanning the rows. When she reached row 42, she stopped. The large man next to Maya was snoring loudly. The teenager on the other side had headphones on. Maya was typing on her laptop, working on the cabin design notes. Beatrice leaned in, her voice dripping with fake concern. "Comfortable?" Maya didn't look up from her screen. "I've been better. The airflow in this section is suboptimal. You should check the recirculation fans in the rear galley. It's getting stuffy." Beatrice bristled. "The fans are fine. Maybe you're just not used to flying." She glanced at Maya's laptop screen. It showed a complex 3D rendering of an aircraft cabin interior with detailed schematics about seat pitch and fabric durability. Beatrice squinted. "What is that?" "Work," Maya said. "Turn it off," Beatrice ordered. Maya finally looked up. "Excuse me?" "I said turn it off," Beatrice repeated, louder this time. Heads in the rows ahead began to turn. "Company policy strictly forbids unauthorized recording or mapping of the aircraft interior." "I see what you're doing. You're taking notes on the layout. Probably for a lawsuit or something equally scammy." "I am not mapping the aircraft," Maya said, her patience thinning. "I am reviewing design schematics, and there is no policy against using a laptop to work." "There is when the captain says so," Beatrice lied, "and as the lead flight attendant, I speak for the captain. We have strict intellectual property rules. You are making passengers uncomfortable with that surveillance." "Surveillance?" Maya laughed, a cold, sharp sound. "Beatrice, you are reaching. I'm designing a seat, a better seat, frankly, than the one I'm sitting in." Beatrice's face went red. She reached out and slammed the lid of Maya's laptop down, narrowly missing Maya's fingers. The sound of the laptop slamming shut echoed in the quiet cabin. The snoring man woke up with a snort. The teenager pulled off his headphones. The entire back section of the plane went silent. "You do not touch my property," Maya said, her voice dropping to a dangerous, low register. "That is assault." "That is enforcing safety regulations," Beatrice shouted. She was losing control, her professional mask slipping entirely. "I have had enough of your attitude since the gate. You stole a first-class seat reservation. You delayed boarding with your oversized luggage, and now you are being insubordinate. One more word, and I will have the authorities waiting for you at Heathrow. You will be blacklisted from every airline in the alliance." Maya stood up. It was difficult in the cramped space, but she managed to squeeze out into the aisle, standing toe-to-toe with Beatrice. Maya was taller than Beatrice, a fact that seemed to infuriate the older woman even more. "Blacklisted?" Maya asked. "On what grounds? Existing while black? Tell me, Beatrice, what is the specific code violation? Is it Section 4, Paragraph 2 of the Passenger Conduct Manual? Or are you just making things up as you go along?" Beatrice froze. Section 4, Paragraph 2. That was the specific, obscure clause regarding passenger non-compliance. Most crew members didn't even know the exact citation. You looked that up," Beatrice stammered. "No," Maya said. "I wrote it." Beatrice blinked. "What?" "I helped draft the conduct revisions last year during the corporate restructure," Maya said, her voice steady. "Just like I know that you are currently in violation of Service Standard 404, harassment of a passenger, and by entering the economy cabin solely to antagonize a specific guest, you are neglecting your duties in the forward galley." "Who are you?" Beatrice whispered, a flicker of genuine fear finally entering her eyes. "Who do you work for? The union? The FAA?" Maya smiled. "I don't work for the union." Before Beatrice could respond, the flight interphone handset at the rear galley station buzzed loudly. Ding, ding, ding. It was the specific chime for a call from the cockpit, not a routine call, a priority call. Beatrice glared at Maya, then stepped back to grab the phone. She held it to her ear, turning her back to Maya. "Cabin, Beatrice speaking," she said, her voice trying to regain its professional smooth. Maya watched Beatrice's shoulders tense up. She watched the color drain from the back of Beatrice's neck. "Yes, Captain," Beatrice said, her voice trembling. "Yes, I am in the rear cabin now. I'm sorry, who? Seat 1A. No, sir, I moved that passenger. I thought there was a discrepancy with the—" Yes, she is here." Beatrice turned around slowly. The phone was still pressed to her ear, but her hand was shaking so badly the cord was vibrating. She looked at Maya with an expression of absolute horror. The captain wants to speak to you," Beatrice whispered, holding out the handset. Maya didn't move to take it. "Tell Captain Miller I'm busy being harassed. Ask him if he can wait 5 minutes." Beatrice looked like she was going to vomit. She spoke into the phone again. "Captain, she says—" Beatrice swallowed hard. "Captain, she knows your name." There was a pause, and then Beatrice winced, pulling the phone away from her ear as a loud, angry voice barked from the other end. "Bring her to the flight deck immediately," Beatrice said, her voice hollow. And he said to bring the champagne." Maya adjusted her hoodie. She picked up her laptop. She looked at the passengers in row 42 who were watching the scene with wide eyes. "Sorry for the disturbance, everyone," Maya said politely. "Mrs. Higgins," she nodded to the lady across the aisle, "try the chamomile tea. It helps with the altitude." Maya stepped into the aisle. She looked at Beatrice, who seemed to have shrunk 3 inches. "Lead the way, Beatrice," Maya said. "I believe I have a seat waiting for me." The walk back to the front of the plane was very different from the walk to the back. This time, Beatrice walked ahead, her head bowed, looking like a prisoner marching to the gallows. Maya walked behind her, head high. As they passed through the curtain into business class, the mood shifted. The air was cooler. The smell of fresh coffee replaced the smell of disinfectant. They reached the front galley. Beatrice stopped outside the cockpit door. She looked terrified to even knock. "Open it," Maya commanded. Beatrice entered the code. The heavy reinforced door clicked open. Captain James Miller turned in his seat. He was a silver-haired man with kind eyes that were currently narrowed in fury. He looked at Beatrice, then he looked past her to Maya. His face softened instantly. "Maya!" Captain Miller unbuckled and twisted around. "Good Lord, when Marcus messaged me via A-Cars saying you were on board and being held hostage in row 42, I thought he was joking." "Hi, Captain Jim." Maya smiled, leaning against the doorframe. "I wish he was joking. Beatrice here seems to think I'm a credit card scammer who stole a hoodie." Captain Miller's gaze snapped back to Beatrice. The look he gave her was withering. "Beatrice, do you know who this is?" Beatrice shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. She just had a ticket. And she looked like a paying customer," Captain Miller shouted, his voice booming in the small space. "This is Maya Sterling, Marcus Sterling's daughter, the woman whose grandfather founded this airline." Beatrice gasped. The sound was audible over the hum of the instruments. She looked at Maya, her eyes wide with shock. The realization hit her like a physical blow. The name on the passport, the boarding pass, the insider knowledge. It all clicked into place. Miss Sterling," Beatrice stammered, her hands trembling. I didn't know. I swear, if I had known. If you had known, you would have treated me like a human being." Maya cut her off. "That's the problem, Beatrice. You treated me like trash because you thought I was nobody. You only treat people with respect when you think they have power, and that is exactly why you shouldn't be wearing that uniform." "Get out of my cockpit," Captain Miller growled at Beatrice. "Go to the galley. Sit on the jump seat. Do not speak to a single passenger. Sarah is acting purser for the remainder of this flight. You are relieved of duty." "Captain, please," Beatrice begged. "I have 20 years. Out!" Beatrice fled the cockpit, sobbing. Captain Miller sighed and looked at Maya. "I am so sorry, Maya. This is unacceptable. Your father is... well, let's just say the satellite phone hasn't stopped blinking since we crossed into Canadian airspace." "I bet," Maya said. "Is he at the London office?" "He's waiting on the tarmac at Heathrow," Captain Miller said. "He's bringing the car around to the gate. And Maya, he's bringing the HR director too." Maya nodded. "Good." "Now," Captain Miller gestured to the cabin behind her. "Mr. Pemberton in 1A? I believe he's sitting in your seat." "He is," Maya said. "I'll handle it," Miller said, reaching for the PA system. "No." Maya put a hand on his arm. "Let me do it. I want Beatrice to watch." Maya stepped out of the cockpit, the heavy reinforced door clicking shut behind her. The atmosphere in the forward galley had changed completely. It was no longer a workspace. It was a funeral parlor. Beatrice sat on the small, fold-down jump seat near the door, her face buried in her hands. Her perfect bun was slightly askew, a single strand of hair falling across her forehead, the first crack in her armor. She looked up as Maya passed. Her eyes were red, rimmed with smudged mascara. She opened her mouth to speak, perhaps to apologize, or perhaps to beg, but Maya didn't even break stride. Maya walked past her as if she were a piece of galley equipment, invisible and irrelevant. That was the first sting of karma. Irrelevance. Maya pushed through the heavy velvet curtain into the first-class cabin. It was a sanctuary of hushed tones and clinking silverware. The scent of warmed macadamia nuts and expensive cologne filled the air. And there, in seat 1A, sat Mr. Pemberton. He was enjoying himself immensely. He had fully reclined the seat into a lounge position. His shoes were off. He was watching a movie on the large 4K screen while picking at a plate of smoked salmon, the appetizer intended for Maya. Sarah, the junior flight attendant, was standing in the aisle looking terrified. She held a fresh bottle of champagne, but seemed unsure whether to pour it or run away. When she saw Maya emerge from the front galley, not in handcuffs but walking with the confidence of a CEO, Sarah's eyes widened. Maya walked up to seat 1A and tapped the console. Mr. Pemberton paused his movie. He looked up, annoyed. When he saw the hoodie, his lip curled. "The lavatories are in the back, sweetheart. You're lost again." "I'm not lost," Maya said, her voice carrying through the quiet cabin. "And you're in my seat." Pemberton laughed, a wet, dismissive sound. "We already went over this at the gate. The purser put me here. I'm a platinum flyer. Now run along before I call her back to drag you out." "The purser has been relieved of duty," Maya said calmly. "And unless you want the airport police waiting for you in London for theft of service, you will gather your things and return to your assigned seat." Pemberton sat up straight, his face reddening. "Theft of service? Do you know who I am? I run a hedge fund in Greenwich. And I own the plane," Maya said. It wasn't a shout. It was a statement of fact, delivered with such casual certainty that the air seemed to leave the cabin. Pemberton blinked. "What?" "Sterling." Maya pointed to the embroidered logo on the linen napkin tucked into his collar. "My name is Maya Sterling. My father is Marcus Sterling. You are sitting in a seat reserved for the Sterling Family Trust. You were placed here by a rogue employee who is currently facing termination. Now, Mr. Pemberton, you have 10 seconds to move, or I will have the pilot turn this plane around and drop you off in Nova Scotia." Pemberton looked toward the galley, looking for Beatrice to save him. He saw only Sarah, who nodded solemnly. "I'm afraid she's right, sir," Sarah said, finding her voice. "This seat is registered to Ms. Sterling. Your assigned seat is 14C in business class. I can escort you there now." The colour drained from Pemberton's face. He looked around the cabin. Other passengers, tech moguls, heiresses, diplomats, were watching. The humiliation was total. He scrambled up, shoving his feet into his loafers, grabbing his jacket. He didn't say a word. He gathered his belongings in a messy pile and scurried down the aisle toward the business class curtain, looking like a child scolded by a teacher. Maya didn't watch him go. She looked at the seat. It was messy. Crumbs on the leather. A used napkin on the tray. "I'm so sorry, Ms. Sterling," Sarah said, rushing forward. "I'll clean this immediately. I'll get fresh linens. It will take just a minute." "Take your time, Sarah," Maya said gently. "And bring me a ginger ale. No champagne." Maya stood in the aisle while Sarah frantically refreshed the suite. Beatrice was watching through the crack in the galley curtain. She saw the deference Sarah showed Maya. She saw the other first-class passengers nodding at Maya respectfully. When the seat was ready, Maya sat down. It was soft, familiar, and comfortable. She pulled her hood down, finally letting her hair fall free. She adjusted the seat controls, raising the privacy partition. As the plane cruised over the dark Atlantic, Maya didn't sleep. She opened her laptop, the one Beatrice had slammed shut, and began to type. She wasn't working on the cabin design anymore. She was writing a detailed incident report. Every hour, Sarah came by to check on her. "Can I get you anything else, Ms. Sterling? Some caviar? The chef's special?" "I'm fine, Sarah," Maya said. "But do me a favor. Go to the back galley. There's a teenager in row 42, seat F. He looked hungry. Take him the dessert cart. Tell him it's complimentary." "Yes, ma'am." Sarah beamed. For the rest of the flight, the atmosphere was surreal. The passengers in first class knew royalty was among them. The crew was walking on eggshells. And Beatrice Vance sat in the jump seat, staring at the dark ocean below, realizing that the sun was about to rise on the worst day of her life. The descent into London Heathrow was bumpy. Rain lashed against the windows, blurring the lights of the city below into streaks of grey and gold. As the landing gear deployed with a heavy thud, Maya looked out the window. She saw the familiar, sprawling complex of Terminal 5, but she knew they wouldn't be docking at a normal gate. Captain Miller had radioed ahead. The plane touched down, the reverse thrusters roaring. As they slowed, the captain's voice came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to London. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened. We have a special arrival procedure today, so we will be taxiing to a remote stand. Please remain in your seats until instructed otherwise." A murmur of confusion went through the cabin. Remote stands were usually annoying. It meant taking a bus to the terminal. But as the plane turned off the main taxiway, it didn't head toward the busing zones. It headed toward the private aviation hangars on the far side of the airfield. Through the rain-streaked window, Maya saw them. 3 black Range Rovers were parked on the tarmac, their hazard lights flashing in unison. Standing next to them, holding a large black umbrella against the driving rain, was a tall, imposing man in a charcoal wool coat. Marcus Sterling. Next to him stood a woman with severe glasses and an iPad. Ms. Calloway, the Global Director of Human Resources. The plane came to a halt. The engines whined down. Usually, the seatbelt sign would ding off and everyone would stand up. But the sign stayed on. "Ladies and gentlemen," the captain said, "please remain seated. We have ground personnel boarding the aircraft." The forward door L1 opened. The rush of cold, damp London air filled the cabin. Beatrice stood up from her jump seat. She smoothed her skirt. She was trembling violently. In her delusional mind, she had constructed a fantasy over the last 4 hours. She thought maybe she could spin this. She would tell Mr. Sterling that she was protecting the brand, that she was being diligent, that she didn't recognize his daughter because she was so focused on security. She practiced her smile. Steps clanged against the metal stairs. Marcus Sterling stepped onto the plane. He shook off his umbrella, handing it to an aide. He was 60 years old, with salt and pepper hair and a presence that sucked the oxygen out of the room. He didn't look at the crew. He didn't look at the passengers. Beatrice stepped forward, her voice quivering. "Mr. Sterling, sir, welcome aboard. I can explain." Marcus didn't even blink. He walked past her. He physically walked around her as if she were a spill on the carpet. The dismissal was so absolute, so cold, that Sarah gasped audibly from the galley. Marcus walked straight to seat 1A. Maya was already standing. She looked tired. Her hoodie was rumpled. She looked like a little girl again. "Hi, Dad," she said softly. Marcus's stony expression crumbled. He pulled her into a hug, squeezing her tight. "I got your text. I tracked the flight. Miller told me everything." He pulled back, looking at her face, checking for damage. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," Maya said. "Just hungry. They wouldn't give me the vegetarian meal." Marcus's jaw tightened. A vein throbbed in his temple. He turned slowly to face the galley. Beatrice was standing there, pale as a ghost. She had never seen Marcus Sterling angry. He was known in the press as a benevolent billionaire, a charming innovator. But the man standing in the first-class cabin now was not benevolent. He was a father who had just found out his child was mistreated by his own payroll. "You," Marcus said. The word hung in the air like a guillotine blade. "Mr. Sterling," Beatrice cried, tears streaming down her face. "Please." I didn't know it was her. She was wearing a hoodie. She looked like a passenger, Marcus said, his voice dangerously low. "My company motto is, every passenger is a guest." "Do you know who wrote that, Miss Vance?" "You did, sir," Beatrice sobbed. "No," Marcus pointed to Maya. "She did, when she was 12 years old, For a school project. I liked it so much I made it the company ethos. You have spent the last 7 hours violating the very core of this airline's identity. Ms. Calloway, the HR director, stepped forward. She didn't shout. She didn't make a scene. She simply held out a tablet and a stylus. "Ms. Vance," Calloway said, her voice crisp and professional. "This is a termination notice, effective immediately. It cites gross misconduct, discriminatory profiling, and harassment of a passenger. Your return ticket to New York has been cancelled. Your corporate access badge is deactivated." "Fired?" Beatrice shrieked. "But I have 20 years. You can't leave me in London." "You are no longer an employee of Sterling Airways," Marcus said coldly. "How you get home is not my concern. You can fly standby on another carrier. I hear economy is quite comfortable." The other first-class passengers were watching, riveted. Mr. Pemberton, peering from business class, looked like he wanted to dissolve into his seat. "Sarah," Marcus called out. Sarah jumped. "Yes, Mr. Sterling? You're the one who tried to help? Who brought my daughter a ginger ale?" Yes, sir." "I tried." Marcus nodded. "You're the new purser on this route, effective immediately. Ms. Calloway will adjust your pay grade by the time we get to the office." Sarah covered her mouth, tears of shock springing to her eyes. "Thank you, sir." Marcus turned back to Beatrice. "Get your bag. Get off my plane." It was the longest walk of Beatrice's life. She had to walk past Maya. She had to walk past the passengers she had fawned over. She had to walk past Sarah, her former subordinate. She grabbed her purse from the crew locker, her hands shaking so badly she dropped her lipstick. No one helped her pick it up. She stepped out onto the metal stairs, into the pouring London rain. There was no luxury car waiting for her, just a shuttle bus and a long, lonely ride to the terminal as a civilian. Marcus put his arm around Maya. "Come on, the car is warm, and I have a chef waiting at the house who knows how to make that pasta you like." "Wait," Maya said. She turned back to the cabin. She looked at the passengers. "I'm sorry for the delay, everyone. Drinks are on the house." A cheer went up from the cabin. Maya and her father walked down the stairs, leaving the plane behind. But the story wasn't over. The fallout was just beginning, and the internet was about to find out exactly what happened on Flight SA-882. Karma, as Beatrice Vance was about to learn, moves faster than a Boeing 787. While Beatrice was dragging her suitcase through the rain to a budget motel near Heathrow Airport, having discovered that her corporate credit card was already deactivated, a video was starting to trend on TikTok. It hadn't been filmed by Maya. It had been filmed by a teenager standing in line at gate B32 back in New York. The caption read, "Flight attendant tries to shame girl in hoodie, doesn't realize she owns the airline." Rak Karma, Sterling, Airways hwashta fired. The video was shaky, but the audio was crystal clear. It captured the exact moment Beatrice sneered, "You don't belong here," and Maya's calm, icy response. By the time Beatrice woke up the next morning in a cramped room that smelled of stale cigarettes, the video had 14 million views. The internet detectives had gone to work. They had identified Beatrice within hours. The hashtag #YahooByBeatrice was trending worldwide. Beatrice sat on the edge of the sagging bed, scrolling through her phone with trembling fingers. Her inbox was full of hate mail. Her LinkedIn profile was being bombarded with comments. She tried to call her union representative in New York, desperate for a lifeline. "I can't help you, Beatrice," the rep said, his voice cold. "We reviewed the footage. You violated 6 counts of the anti-discrimination clause and 3 counts of the passenger Bill of Rights, and you did it to the chairman's daughter. You're radioactive. No airline will touch you." "But I have experience," Beatrice screamed into the phone. "I was a purser." "You were a liability," the rep said. "Good luck, Beatrice." The line went dead. Beatrice was stranded in London. She had to buy her own ticket home. She couldn't afford a direct flight on a major carrier, and certainly not on Sterling Airways. She ended up booking a seat on a budget charter airline, a no-frills carrier known for delays and cramping. The irony was suffocating. Beatrice Vance, the woman who had sneered at economy passengers for 20 years, was now standing in a 3-hour security line at Luton Airport. When she finally boarded the plane, there was no reserved overhead bin. She was forced to check her bag. She walked down the aisle, searching for her seat. It was in the last row. "Excuse me," she muttered to the flight attendant, a young woman who looked exhausted. "Is there any water?" "Water costs £3, the girl said, snapping her gum. "Card only." Beatrice sank into her seat. The legroom was non-existent. Her knees pressed into the plastic tray table. As the plane taxied, she looked out the window and saw a gleaming Sterling Airways jet taking off in the distance. It was headed for New York, filled with passengers enjoying the service she used to command. She closed her eyes, and a single tear rolled down her cheek. She was finally sitting exactly where she belonged. Meanwhile, in the Sterling Airways boardroom in London, the atmosphere was very different. Maya sat at the head of the table, dressed in a sharp blazer, her hair pulled back. Marcus Sterling sat to her right, beaming with pride. "The incident with Miss Vance was unfortunate," Maya addressed the board members. "But it highlighted a flaw in our training. We prioritize luxury over humanity. That ends today." Maya slid a folder across the table. "This is the Sterling Standard Initiative," she announced. "New uniforms are optional. Hoodies are allowed in first class if the passenger pays for the seat. And we are implementing a new blind service protocol where staff are trained to treat every passenger as if they are the CEO's daughter. Because, as we learned, you never know when they might be." The board members nodded in agreement. The stock price hadn't dipped. In fact, it had gone up. The public loved the story. They loved that the arrogant gatekeeper had been taken down by the undercover heiress. Sarah, the newly promoted purser, was featured in the company newsletter that week. She was smiling, holding a tray of champagne. The caption read, "Kindness is the ultimate luxury." Maya walked out of the meeting and checked her phone. She had one new notification. It was an email from a rival airline offering Beatrice a job as a baggage handler, the only position she was qualified for, now that her flight credentials were revoked. Maya didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She just deleted the email and walked toward the elevator. She had a flight to catch, and this time nobody was going to stop her. And that is the story of how Beatrice Vance learned the most expensive lesson of her life: never judge a book by its cover, and never judge a passenger by their hoodie. Beatrice spent 20 years thinking she was the queen of the sky, only to end up right back in the last row of economy where she started. It's a brutal reminder that arrogance is a fragile thing, and true class isn't about what you wear. It's about how you treat people. What do you guys think? Did Beatrice deserve to be fired on the spot, or was leaving her stranded in London too harsh? I want to hear your opinion in the comments below. Let's get a debate going. If you enjoyed this story of instant karma and justice, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a story. We have a crazy tale coming up next week about a landlord who evicted a tenant, unaware he was an undercover FBI agent. You won't want to miss that. Thanks for watching, and stay humble.